Good evening and welcome to tonight's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, regular scheduled meeting, Wednesday, August 12th, 2026. First thing on our agenda is our approval of our minutes from July 22nd. Did you guys get a chance to look those over?
That's okay.
Got a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. We'll start down here with Joel.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Victoria? Matt? Aye. All right, so move on to the second item on the agenda, which is public comment, where members of the public can speak to the commission regarding matters not on the agenda nor currently pending before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak not on the agenda tonight?
I don't believe what I have to say has anything to do with what's on the agenda tonight.
Give us 3 minutes. Give me your name, address, and give us 3 minutes. Yeah.
Hello, my name is John Slagboom. Greetings, Chair and Commissioners and the general public. I'm going to be talking fast because this is a long comment. I'm going to try to get below the 3-minute mark. So if I get out of breath, I apologize in advance. My name is John Slagboom, like I said, and last month a builder told me about a young father about my age whose family saved for 5 years to build on Spotswood Street. The city said that the permits would issue once the old building came down. It issued the city issued the demolition permit on October 6th, and the building came down in late October. The city stamped the plan's final review on October 29th, and 6 days later, the city stopped everything on that parcel in writing. 7 applications sit there today, and to my knowledge, the only permit ever issued is the demolition. That family is young, like my own, single income and saving what they can, trying to get ahead, just like my own. They did everything right, and their losses stand near $600,000, probably more, to be honest, and not including the daily opportunity cost of not having a building occupied with tenants. 3 questions. 1, why did the city issue a demolition permit, then no permit once the building was down? 2, if the plans did not meet code, why did the city approve and stamp them? And 3, if they did meet code, what gave the city the power to stop the permits? Plans, stamped, demolitions permitted, and then nothing. It kind of looks like a rug pull from an outsider's perspective, just looking up on what happened. I pulled the city's permit reports and the full public files behind these projects and thousands of others from the city's permit portal. This summer, a dozen duplex applications sat waiting. At least 8 were withdrawn in the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the city issued permits for buildings with the same kinds of features. I asked staff to name the written standard in force on November 13th that passes one and fails the other. The standards codified by Ordinance 2020-604 were enforced for 8 months before the council adopted them through staff memos whose own text said the code needed amendment. Zoning law is written by this commission and the elected council and not by staff memo. If that was not illegal, it still is deeply concerning. Zoning standards passed informally by memo and seemingly applied unevenly. I asked for 2 things. First, the 111 plan study. The staff cited to you the property list that comprised it and the criteria that was built. My record request for this sits invoiced at almost $250, which frankly I can't afford. Each of you can ask for it at no cost. Second, the specific buildings behind the plan sets that were showed to this commission in May and given to the council in July. The Spotswood plans passed 2 fire department reviews in the city's own records. I'm not asking anyone to touch building safety codes, only the zoning rules that decide where and what housing people may build and where. Please consider re-reviewing the zoning code and pull it back where you can to make room for affordable housing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And sorry, but I have to boogie after this, so
Perfect.
I would stay for the whole meeting.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Anyone else have anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Want to come up? All right. Thanks again, John. We'll come up with number 3, public hearing. Proposal for a rezone of preliminary subdivision plat for a property generally located east of the intersection of 3rd Street and Mountain View Road within the city of Moscow, known as Harvest Hills 2nd Edition. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So before you tonight, we have the Harvest Hills 2nd Edition rezone and preliminary plat. This is the subject property highlighted in red at the center of your screen. You can see the current terminus of 3rd Street. Harvest Hills 1st Edition located here. Here's Mountain View Road. Third Street picks up here in the Rolling Hills addition, and then leads to Mosier Park here to the east. Primarily surrounded by single-family residential development, with the exception of twin homes, which are located within the Harvest Hills First Edition subdivision there to the west. So the Harvest Hills Second Edition is a rezone of a 2.6 acre area from the current R2 zone to the R3 zone, which is our medium density residential, and a preliminary plat of a 17.2 acre area to create 64 parcels averaging a little over 9,000 square feet in size. Background's quite lengthy here, so bear with me, but in 2005, essentially this property started a long journey. The subject property was annexed and rezoned from the Ag Forest to the R2 zone. There was a preliminary plat for what was referred to as the Windfall Hills subdivision that included 77 single-family residential lots, 9,700 square foot average lot size, which equated to about 4.5 dwelling units per acre net density. The roadway alignment's virtually the same as the Harvest Hills proposal throughout the years. And then August 1st of 2005, this was approved. And this was the original configuration of the Windfall Hills subdivision. And in 2006, the applicant submitted a PUD, which is a plan unit development proposal to coincide with the Windfall Hills preliminary plat. There were sample home elevations with architectural style, reduced front yard setbacks to accommodate some challenging topography. Those were 25 to 10. And then the developer proposed to provide additional landscaping and public amenities as part of that, and that was approved July 19th of that year. And then in 2008, the developer, Windfall Hills, approached the city about a Verizon pedestal that needed to be moved as part of the proposed subdivision. At the time, we were contemplating road improvement projects on the portion of Mountain View that included Windfall Hills subdivision frontage. And there was a desire to extend the section of Jansen Street to the north subdivision plat boundary to its intersection with Damon Street. That equated to a 2008 MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, where the city and the developer reached an agreement that was executed through this MOU that was approved by City Council April 21st of 2008. And it stated that the city would contribute up to $50,000 towards the relocation of this pedestal and be responsible for underground utilities on the Jansen Street extension. And the developer is responsible for public improvements on Mountain View Road, including bicycle and pedestrian path on the east side and the above ground improvements for the Jansen Street extension. July 21st is 2008. The final plat and development agreement were approved by the council. Some conditions of that 2008 MOU were not satisfied, and that resulted in the 2009 MOU. The city was responsible for improvements to Mountain View Road, including paving, curb, gutter, and drainage. And the developer was responsible for the total cost of Jansen Street extension, including underground utilities in phase 1 of the subdivision. They were also required to dedicate street right-of-way and 25-foot and 35-foot wide easements on east side of Mountain View Road, which included street, pedestrian, and bicycle path that's there today. And then the final plat needed to be recorded by June 3rd of 2009. So the city has since constructed the agreed upon improvements to Mountain View Road. Developer only completed the street and 25 and 35-foot easement dedications. And the Windfall Hills final plat was never filed, or developer never paid for the Jansen Street extension construction. So the final plat approval expired, which required the developer to start from the beginning of the subdivision plat process. That resulted in another application in 2013, this one referred to as Harvest Hills, which included a preliminary plat, which was similar to Windfall Hills. There was 75 lots, which ranged in size from a little over 7,000 square feet to 19,000.
Gordon Walker.
The applicant determined the project was not financially feasible and never advanced to the final plat stage. And this was the configuration of the Harvest Hills preliminary plat, so similar to the original Windfall Hills proposal. And that brings us to 2015 with the Harvest Hills First Edition. It's just a 7.45 acre portion of the entire 24.7 acre site. It included a rezone and a comprehensive plan land use amendment and a preliminary plat with 22 twin homes and 1 neighborhood business lot. And so this was that property at the time. And this is what the First Edition subdivision. So you see the twin homes that are constructed today on the south and the north side of 3rd Street. And then there was a PUD that was approved for twin homes and townhouses. And there's still a neighborhood business lot that lies vacant here at the corner. So February 1st of 2016, the council approved the rezone comp plan amendment. And April 18th of 2016, the council approved the subdivision plat for Harvest Hills First Edition with 3 conditions. One of those conditions was that the applicant be required to provide 9 on-street parking spaces on the north side of 3rd Street. Brings us to 2021, Harvest Hills Second Edition, 17.2 acre area. There's a preliminary plat to create 56 single-family parcels. Those range between a little over 7,200 to 24,075 square feet in size. It was approved by City Council on September 7th of 21 with no conditions. But the applicant failed to submit the final plat documents to the Latah County Recorder's Office within 100 days, which is a requirement of the code. And so the approval was rendered essentially null and void. And that's what brings us here tonight. But this was the plat from 21 that was approved. You can see this is the western portion, so the continuation of the 3rd Street alignment. We have Jansen and Amber Court here. And this is the eastern portion, which ends in more of a cul-de-sac configuration with parkland in the center. So that brings us to the current proposal before you tonight. This is the property once again, so we don't need to go over the area, but Mosier Park located directly to the east here. 3rd Street extension through the Rolling Hills addition, and this is Harvest Hills First Edition. So topography map, so just to give you an idea of the contours, each one of these represent 1 foot of elevation change. So really a valley running toward the center of the property. This is the eastern portion. Taking a look at the comprehensive plan land use designation, it's auto urban residential as well as the surrounding area. Mosier Park to the east is parks and open space. And then there's suburban commercial, which includes the PUD with Harvest Hills First Edition located here. So auto urban residential within the comp plan tended to contain predominantly single-family detached homes on lots ranging from 7,000 to 11,000 square feet in size, a little more isolated from surrounding uses, which may require residents to rely on more on automobile transportation. Includes areas generally anticipated to be developed for low to moderate density residential uses at densities between 3 to 6 units per acre, which could include a mix of detached single-family twin-home townhouse dwellings. And then it points to the R1, R2, and R3 zone as being the most appropriate zoning districts. This just brings us to a zoning configuration of the area, primarily R2 with surrounding properties as well as the subject property. Of course, R3 and neighborhood business here with the First Edition there to the west. The proposal before you tonight is to rezone a portion of the front of the property to the R3 designation to coincide with the continuation of the First Edition there to the west. So looking at the R2 zone, it's appropriate where the following circumstances are present. Single-family dwellings predominate the area. Terrain is not harshly irregular, and smaller lot sizes could be accommodated without extensive earthwork. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate for the densities allowed, and the existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the comprehensive plan will also guide the application of the zone. And then really a single-family zone, and also allows market and community gardens, group childcare facilities, and public parks and rec facilities. The R3 zone provides for an increase in the density allowed by the R2 zone by permitting different types of housing construction. So that's appropriate where activity levels are moderate, terrain permits construction of somewhat larger structures, and where public systems and neighborhood facilities can accommodate a greater intensity of land uses guided by the comprehensive plan. And then really a little bit of a range within the R3 for residential, so single family, 2-family, twin homes, townhouses, and essentially the same uses allowed within the R2 zone, market community gardens, groups, small child care facilities, and public parks and rec facilities. So that brings us to the preliminary plat. So there's 18 twin home lots being proposed. Those range between 4,700 and 5,740 square feet in size. The minimum lot size within the R3 zone is 3,250 square feet for twin homes and a minimum lot width of 30 feet. The average lot size is 5,180 square feet in size. And then the R2 portion has 46 single-family lots. Those range between 7,873 to 24,075 square feet in size. The minimum lot size for the R2 zone is 7,000 square feet, and the minimum lot width is 60 feet. The average lot size is 10,587 for these lots. And then just an example of the average lot sizes in the area. So Harvest Hills first edition twin homes, those are about 5,133 for the median there, which is comparable to the average lot size for the proposal. Mosier Estates first through the fourth, about 12,000 square feet. Damon areas, 10,374 square feet is the average lot size. And then the Rolling Hills additions, a little over 11,000, a little under 12,000, and about 9,659 for the Rolling Hills 8th edition. So fairly comparable lot sizes to the surrounding area. Looking at 3rd Street, it's a collector street, means it's a 34-foot wide street section intended to include bike lanes on both sides of the street with no on-street parking. Curb gutter sidewalks on both sides. Jansen and Amber Court are 28 feet in width. Parking on one side of the street with curb gutter sidewalks on both sides as well. Brings us to the preliminary plat proposal for the 2nd edition. You can see the twin home lots here to the western portion of the property, and then transitioning into the single family detached lots as you move further to the east. These are all single family. Then you end up with the cul-de-sac that includes the parkland and dedication at the center. And there's 2 pedestrian pathways I like to note. The first one coming from one of the Rolling Hills additions here to the south will extend into the subdivision here to the north. And then another 10-foot wide right-of-way dedication to access Mosier Park at the end of the cul-de-sac there. Kind of faint, but this is the overall intended street configuration. So thoroughfare plan, which shows future streets. You can see the 3rd Street connection here ends up looping around, heading to the north. This is the Pine View addition, which is at the final plat stage. So as soon as that is completed, that will end up connecting Mosier with 3rd Street at this location. And then the road's intended to extend up here to D Street. Water service, there's currently a main that currently extended into the terminus of 3rd Street. So it'll be extended along 3rd Street alignment. The existing system has adequate potable and fire flows. And the sanitary sewer, there's an 8-inch main which currently exists in the 3rd Street alignment. This was part of an agreement between the Windfall Hills developer and the Rolling Hills developer to extend this already. And so the existing system's adequate to serve the additional flow. Storm sewer is conveyed through mains in 3rd and stormwater detention ponds in the northwest and southwest corners of the subdivision. There's a main from Rolling Hills additions currently which discharges onto the subject property and then drains to a 24-inch culvert between lots 2 and 3 of the Skyview Estates addition. That 24-inch culvert then extends north to Paradise Creek upstream of the Bridge Street. And the stormwater main will be connected Rolling Hills additions to the Harvest Hills first edition as part of this proposed subdivision. And so you can see the stormwater system here. Those are the purple lines. You can see it currently discharges into this area, ends up being conveyed via surface conveyance to this location. That's where the 24-inch culvert is, and then discharged into the creek. Eventually, this will connect with existing stormwater detention pond in Harvest Hills first edition. Then it's conveyed with the creek downstream of that location. The parkland dedication, so there's 13.32 acres of net developable land. The R2 zone requires 5% and the R3 requires 7%. So there's a 30,876 square foot dedication requirement. Previously, there's 10,896 square feet of parkland in excess of what was required for Harvest Hills first edition that was banked for future phases. Results in a 19,980 square foot dedication requirement. So the applicant's proposing that center island in Amber Court. That's 19,083 square feet and a 10-foot wide access of 1,525 square feet to the Mosier Park, which results in an excess of 628 square feet over the minimum dedication requirement. The Parks and Rec Commission and Department recommends acceptance of the proposed parkland dedication. And this just shows those 2 dedication areas. So with that, staff recommends the commission conduct the public hearing, and upon consideration of testimony received, Recommend approval of the rezone from the R2 to R3 zone for the 2.68 acre area with no conditions. And recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat for Harvest Hills second edition with no conditions. And of course, in accordance with the commission's decision on the rezone and preliminary plat, direct staff to prepare the RCS document. I'd certainly try to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thanks, Mike. You guys got any questions for Mike? Anyone? Joel, you look like you might have something.
Like some of the public comments, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
Some of the public comments noted that was present in the site. And I think you covered it and you talked a little bit about how this was sort of a temporary wetland that was created from some of the storm runoff, and that piping is going to be later connected out to the piping to bring it into Paradise Creek. Can you just touch on that? Like, how long has that wetland been there, and is it a historic wetland from your perspective?
That's just vegetation associated with the discharge of the pipe coming from the detention pond in one of the Rolling Hills additions here. So that discharges onto this field, and it's just a natural drainage course from the grading that's already occurred on the property. It's resulted in vegetation growing in this area as it makes its way down to the 24-inch culvert there by Damon Street. So yeah, it's proposed the pipes intended to be connected along the 3rd Street alignment and tied in with the Harvest Hills first edition, and ends up being conveyed to the detention pond and then on to Paradise Creek. So
The second question is, given the development that's already happened on the site and the existing topography, would you have any reason to suggest that the terrain is inadequate to develop with the proposed plan?
there's been quite a bit of grading that's already occurred on the property, and it's not dissimilar to the surrounding subdivisions, the topography that existed at the time that they were developed. So no.
Anyone else have anything, any questions for Mike? All right, thanks, Mike. So we will open the public hearing now and hear from the applicant. The applicant wants to come up.
Phil Ryan Gans. I live at 2700 East D Street, Moscow. The land here is all infill property, and our goal would be to develop it into lots and make that available to builders. We're rezoning the very western portion from R2 to R3 so that we have some product types on a little bit smaller lot. It'll give us 3 different product types to come to market. Some of larger homes, some middle-sized homes, and some twin homes on the western portion, which would be very similar to the existing homes that are on the western portion. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
You guys got any questions for Phil? Go ahead, Matt.
Mr. Ryan Gans?
That's correct.
I just had a question broadly on the unit prices that you've sold, specifically the twin homes. Like, what have the previous twin homes sold for, and what's the typical family that purchases those? And the reason I ask is that we heard a comment earlier on affordable housing at the outset of this. I was just curious about, what have you previously sold for, and what kind of families do these twin homes serve?
The twin home lots that I built the houses that are currently there, and they ranged in price. I think the lowest priced one that I sold, this is some years ago, so you have to take that into account, was around $280,000. I think the last one I sold was somewhere around $440,000, as I recall, and they ranged in size from, I don't know, I built a lot of houses. I can't remember the high size of all of them, but maybe 1,300 feet to about 1,900 feet, more or less.
The second question would be, like, what are some of the features, either in the design process or the materiality of the homes, that aid affordability, given that I understand that twin homes, by their very nature of shared walls, help reduce material costs? I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, like, what are some things you do in your building approach that aids affordability, if at all?
Well, it's very expensive to put in the infrastructure for a development between the roads and the curb and gutter, all the underground utilities. Every foot of frontage on a road is very expensive. And so, for instance, those twin home lots on the west side are about 40 feet in width, as opposed to the ones that are further to the east that are 62 or 67 foot lots. So the first step in affordability is having a lot size that doesn't have a whole bunch of infrastructure costs tied to it. So they're a little smaller lots. In terms of two homes being connected so that the party wall is along the property line, there is some savings there as well. And there are ways to build the homes so that there's very little sound transmission from one side to the other. So they actually end up being very livable. It reduces side yards, which would ordinarily be about 8 feet on either side for twin homes. Those would be just on a single side. I don't know if that answers your question in fullness.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for him? All right, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, now we'll open it up for anyone in favor of the project that would like to come up and talk, if anyone. And how about anyone opposed?
I think we have.
Oh, we have one again? Yeah, I'm sorry. I gave up on you too quick, didn't I?
I'm James Nance. I live at 2015 Crestview Drive. So this development's happening out my front window. Just very, we've been there for about 3 years. And if you know the area, it's uphill to the west and uphill to the east. And sometimes in the winter, it's been very difficult to get out because the hill is rather steep. So I knew that eventually they were going to develop 3rd Street. You could see the manhole covers and so on. And so I've been waiting for 3 years for this to happen. And I'm very thankful for Phil developing it. And my son used to live in one of the duplexes that are currently on the top of 3rd Street Hill, and appreciated also the smaller, more affordable housing that he had. So very much in favor of this. Very thankful that it's moving forward.
All right, thanks, James. Anyone else in favor of? Yeah.
My name is Scott Opplinger. I live at 2402 Atani. That's right on the corner of 6th and Atani. We've lived there for 17 years. Watched a lot of homes being built. My only comment is I really like the pedestrian paths that connect streets. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, including 2 sets of stairs within a quarter, maybe half mile of our house. And those make walking much more possible and safe and enjoyable. So I appreciate those.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Anyone else like to talk in favor of this? All right. How about anyone against? You have to come up here and talk on the mic. Give us your name and your address, and you got to talk in the microphone so they can hear you backstage.
We live on Hillcrest, and it's supposed to be.
What's your name?
Jim Masiotra. We live on Hillcrest, and it's supposed to be a 100-year floodplain. We've been there for 7 years, and it's flooded 3 times. And it doesn't look like there's any way that you're trying to abate the actions of the changes to the environment to those of us that have had those older homes down there on Hillcrest and Bridge Street. So I wonder if there's any abatement idea of trying to get rid of that water that accumulates and floods our houses out. I don't think that you have that plan in mind when you asphalt over all of that land that used to absorb the water. So I'm concerned that there'll be further flooding in the future and damage our homes again. And I don't know if you've considered that in this development. I talked to you in July, and it seems like you have a culvert that you're going to put in, but I don't think that's going to abate the water from our area on Bridge Street and Hillcrest.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Anyone else against the project?
My name is Claudia Daybald. I live on 1944 Damon Street. We've been there for 34 years. We picked the lot that we picked because we were told that the Bridge Street the culvert under the Bridge Street bridge was going to be expanded within 2 years, and then the city decided not to. And I do appreciate that the city's coming out, trying to clean out the creek, but it's just too little, too late. And even this first division, it's basically directed through our land, through the piping that goes through there and into the creek. And it just has not helped with flooding at all. I know flooding is going to get worse for a lot of reasons, but consider all the rainwater. My dad was calculating the amount of rainwater that comes off of a roof and off of a street and how many gallons a minute. And that little tiny pond that they said was going to retain the first division was just a ridiculous little teeny speck that does nothing. And to add to that, just is going to be, I mean, we're lucky. We are quite a bit above the floodplain, but our crawl space is not, though. And our poor neighbors just get drowned over and over again. And to see this hardscape being directed through that tiny pipe into, you come out and see, look off our deck next time it floods, and you would not want to do this.
Thanks, Claudia. Okay, anyone else like to speak against it?
Hello, my name's Tracy Hellman. I live in 1950 Crestview, and so our backyard kind of looks out in the development, and I'm very supportive of affordable housing. I guess my only concern is getting so many houses packed in there, in the sense that one thing that I recently moved here, and the one thing that I love about living in Moscow is the dark nights, and I would be really sad to lose just the stars when you have so many more houses and city lights and stuff. So if there could be as they're developing this, look into that aspect of how we can kind of keep just the country light, feel still within the city of Moscow. I think would be really a great thing. And so, but anyway, that's just the thing I wanted to kind of speak to. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. I see another hand. Yeah.
My name's Cliff Todd. I'm at 1946 Crestview Drive. My concerns are about fire and water, I guess. So I don't know, do you guys have a pointer or can I point to them?
I don't know. There should be a pointer up there. Is there, Mike? Oh, there we go, right there.
Top button there.
Not that top one, huh?
This top one right here. Yeah.
Go back to the mic. We won't hear you. We can't hear you. There you go.
We are roughly at this house right here. So we've seen this develop. We've been at this house since 2007, or my mother has. So we've seen this whole thing develop over time. The problem with these houses down here, you talked about lot size. That's great, except a third to 50% of these things are on a lot is so steep, you can't build a house, let alone a garden or anything else. And so since these houses have been put in, you can see like this house, our duplex, has a fence right there. The rest of this area is nothing but weeds. This one, they don't have a fence. It's steep all the way down the bottom of the house. The same thing with these two. So especially now, well, my house here, we were down it this afternoon, and it's hard to stand on it because the slope is so steep. And they, when they started this, they were farming it, but when they started that, behind the houses there, at least all this area up here, they steepen the grade so you get more flat, more building room, which is fine, but it's created an unmanageable slope, and so it just goes to weeds. So right now we've got quackgrass, canary grass, some bunch grass, lots and lots of thistles up there. The bunch grass is as tall as I am on that hillside, and so my concern is since it's unmanageable by the people that own it, it creates a fire hazard there. And the more density housing you have, the more increase of a ignition there is, because there's just more people, more appliances, more electrical wiring and that kind of thing. So I'm not against the development per se, but I would be against more density housing because it just increases, again, the fire ignition possibility. I don't see how you're ever going to manage that vegetation unless there's a noxious weed problem, which will probably happen since nobody's managing those properties. I haven't seen anything yet. The other thing, so that's it about the fire concern. But the other thing, Mike, is about the hydrology of the place on that slope right behind my house again. If I can find it right there, right at the bottom of that slope in there, there's 2 wet spots that are cattails. So I think you have a little bit of could have a problem with slope instability there since they've steepened it on that plot. And then we've seen this thing when it was being farmed, and there's always been a wet spot right here. That's always been, whoops, I'll give it back to you. So anyway, about the wet.
Okay, wrap it up here, because we got 3 minutes cooking
About
here.
the wet spots, there are wet, I think there's a spring behind my house at the bottom of the toe of the slope, and that wet spot that they think is just drained off from the retention ponds, I think there's a spring in there. And I've seen it since 2007, so.
Spring, huh? All right, thanks, Cliff. Anyone else? Okay, try to keep it to 3 minutes, okay? I don't want to be rude and cut you guys off.
I'm Linda Hardesty. We live on Mosier Street, and we're not necessarily against the development, but, well, I'm not. But we do have some concerns, and a major one is connecting 3rd Street to Jansen Street, going across through there. If you go on D Street or Mountain View, anywhere around the 2 schools that are there, the middle school and McDonald School, traffic backs up for blocks, and that's in good weather. Okay. And then a lot of people come up, I think it's called Hillside, whatever, kind of the back way onto Mosier, and they park there waiting for their kids to come from school. So it's kind of a lurking zone or a cell phone lot or whatever for kids from school. Sometimes I look at it and I say, you couldn't even get a fire truck up here because it's on both sides of the road all the way up. That's now. And then if they put that road through to Jansen Street, that's already blind when you come up around Damon Street onto Mosier, and people run that stop sign a lot. So it's a really scary intersection when school's in session. So if you have that much more traffic coming through there, it's going to be that much more congested. And that's not something you can solve just with this development. You've got a real traffic issue around schools that needs to be dealt with on a larger scale. But running more traffic down Mosier Street, where already you can't see those kids coming and going with pedestrians and cars and everything, I think it could be a real catastrophe. I did see in the notes, we couldn't come to the 19th meeting. We got the notice 2 days before. But I did see that the developer and engineer would be open to making that connection a pedestrian path, which would be brilliant because that would have more kids walking to school and less cars up and down there. And it would be a much safer grade. That grade is really steep, even the way they've regraded things. My only other comment is how much parking space is available in the R3, I believe it is, the higher density. Because even where we are on Mosier Street with big lots and 2 and 3 car garages, there's always cars parked on the street, a lot of times on both sides. So I'm concerned that you're just going to have so much parking on those streets that congests garbage trucks, fire trucks, safety for kids going back and forth between cars. So I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that 3 minutes?
Yep, you did good. Perfect. Thank you.
My name is Lindy Walker, and we are at 287 Mosier Street. And similar concerns with what Linda had was the connecting Jansen Street to these huge developments. Right now, I can see the playground for McDonald Elementary from my front yard. We get to watch the kids walk and bike and play on that road. Connecting those streets would be detrimental to them and them being able to continue to walk to school. Right now, they do walk through the field and up. And I think a walking path or stairs or something to connect the community would be great. But a road, it's not going to be able to be wide enough to allow these kids to walk and bike to school. And I worry about the safety of our kids because nobody is going to go down to Mountain View anymore. Everyone's going to be cutting through Jansen onto Mosier, not just to get to the schools, but to get over to the Hamilton Low Aquatic Center and to the Herc. It will just become a bypass and it will be really busy. So same concerns is just that traffic would do a huge disservice to our kids.
Thank you, Lindy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Yeah.
My name is Jeannie Farmer. I was not planning on speaking tonight, but nobody else has represented East 3rd Street. I am the last resident at the end of East 3rd Street, right next to the development that's going in. Up until now, I moved in 3 years ago. Up until now, I've noticed extreme congestion of just parking on that street with the twin homes. I have no problem with twin homes. I live in one. But you add, I don't know if it was 64 more twin homes or however many more twin homes going up that way. When I purchased the property, I was told, I was of the understanding it would be single family detached homes. That's the only reason why I bought that unit. And then now all of a sudden we're in the middle of a possible rezone and I'm getting the heck out. And I can't move now because of all that construction. Nobody's going to buy my property. I mean, I'm like living in anyway, that's just part of the process. I knew it was going to happen, so I'm accepting that. But I do not, I mean, there's cars parked everywhere and the police do not, I don't know if it's because it's a dead end, but there is not a lot of, what do you call it when police go around a neighborhood, but perusing the neighborhood. Cars park everywhere. You add 30, 40, 50, however many more twin homes, that's double the amount of cars. And a lot of the people that go onto these like lower, not low cost housing, but more affordable housing, they oftentimes are starter homes and for them, and they have a lot of stuff. They use their garages for storing. That's up to them. But then they park all their cars out on the street. And I'm not seeing that change if you add 30 or 40, 50 more of those homes. It's like a used car lot up and down that street right now. I've accepted that, like where I live, but you add all these more twin homes. It is just packed with cars. And it looks like, I shouldn't get into that. It's going to reduce the livability and the welfare of the people that live on that street. You're just cramming homes in there. And that's not what Moscow is not about. And they've since allowed, when I bought my home, renting was not allowed.
Okay, you got to wrap it up.
Pardon me?
You got to wrap it up.
Okay, just this year, they've allowed renting. So now we've got college students living on the street, which brings more cars. It's extremely dissatisfying to live there now. And you turn this into all this more housing. It's great having single family homes moving up the hill. I highly reject the proposal. So that's what I have
Thank
to
you.
say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Again, just try to keep it to 3 minutes if you could.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Clarkwist. I live at 1748 East 3rd Street in one of the twin homes. I'm against this proposal for similar reasons. A lot of those all of the twin homes on the south, or I don't know my directions in this image, but on the south end of the image are single car garages. So even if they park one in the driveway, the other one's in the street, some people are renting out their home. They live there, but they're renting it out. So you have some houses with 4 cars outside, and it makes the road really congested. I believe somebody possibly removed a no parking sign from the street. We used to have one on the, like, right where you turn right into the road. Somebody removed that. So now we have people parking on the right side of the street. So if you're turning left and someone's trying to turn right, you can't do that. So I can't even use the left turn lane just in case I have somebody else coming in onto East 3rd. So if you're going to attach all these streets together, you're going to have more traffic, and you're going to have that issue as well. I do like the twin homes, but not in that particular area. So that's why I'm against the rezoning, just for the congestion and the traffic. Maybe if the twin homes had a 2-car garage and not that single car garage, it could work. But I didn't see any mention of a widening of the street to accommodate for any additional cars. So that's why I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Bjorn Palmier. I'm at 2229 Mosier Street. Lived there since I was pretty darn young, like infant young. Moved in 2002, and my concerns are mostly about hydrology as well. When we moved in, there was no development on East 3rd Street in Atani and Panorama Drive and the like. And as Cliff said earlier, there was effectively a wetland, just because that's a low area, that ran through what's now the Harvest Hills addition down to the creek at Bridge Street. And as impermeable surface has increased on the south side of the new addition and further to the east, we've seen increased water flow. The last couple of years has seen some pretty nasty flooding down on Bridge and Hillcrest. 2019 floods were especially problematic, as you guys remember. And I understand that right now, the storm drain for this drains into the creek by Bridge Street, where we've seen some of the most painful flooding on the east side of town. Then it would, the proposed development would have it draining near the end of what's now 3rd Street, 3rd and Mountain View. And then, although that would, punt the problem down and make it less of a pain point for Bridge Street, it would make it more of a point for those who live near Mountain View and 3rd Street as well. I understand there's stormwater ponds. They require upkeep, and they're awfully small at this point. So I would request, if this is passed, that there be, say, an MOU or some kind of provision requiring expansion of the stormwater ponds, further maintenance of the stormwater ponds, or rain gardens, bioswales, flood control measures to limit runoff, to slow runoff into Paradise Creek. Because we're already looking at flood conditions every other year, I'd say, is safe to say. And I don't want to punt those. I mean, I don't want them to happen on Bridge and Hillcrest, but I also don't want them to happen down by the base of 3rd Street, where the creek is still there. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bjorn. Anyone else have anything to add against this? How about anyone in general?
Jerry Schutz, I live here in Moscow. I sat on 2005 when this came through the first time. I argued that 3rd Street connecting to D Street makes absolutely no sense for 2 parallel streets to connect. Once we blocked it off at 3rd Street over the creek, it should be changed. The name from Mountain View to where we're going to connect to D should be changed. I'd be happy with Harvest Hill, something other than 3rd Street, just because parallel streets should never connect. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, anyone else just in general? Okay, we will close. Or applicant, does the applicant want to come up and hopefully put some minds to ease?
Happy to answer any questions, but I'd like to address some of the comments. The first one has to do with flooding. I farmed this property for many years before we developed it. And in the event that you have frozen ground with snow on top of it and then get rain on top of that ground, it will flood because there's no water that goes into flooded ground. So there's been flooding for, a long period of time here. Anytime that ground's frozen and it rains on snow, it's definitely going to flood. The connection of the storm drain system should alleviate not 100% of the problem, but a good measure of it, because that water, instead of running across the frozen ground to the north, which would be along Damon Street, would be collected by the storm drain system that's in 3rd Street. So there'd be curb and gutter there, and then all the roof surfaces, those gutters would be conveyed into the storm drain system, and then from there down to the detention basin, which should help mitigate downstream flows to some measure because of the ponding that happens during surge events. I can't think of any other questions to answer.
Like something about a pedestrian path. Was there a pedestrian path going in?
I'm sorry, ask it again.
A pedestrian path? There was something said about that. That was one of the questions they had.
Right. I suppose there is the option of not having Jansen Street connect as a road, but instead changing it to a pedestrian path. That would be far cheaper for me to put in, but I don't think that a connectivity in terms of what the city desires is what's in the cards. So I went according to the direction of the engineering department, what the city was asking.
Okay, another concern they had was weeds, I guess. We just name them off here.
Well,
I don't know what you do about the weeds or what.
When I sell a lot to someone, if they cut the weeds or they don't, I can't really do a whole lot about that.
Yeah, I'm
There
not
is
sure what
slope
you do
there.
about that either.
It's the Palouse. You're going to have slopes.
Okay, does anybody got any questions for the applicant?
I was wondering if you could comment on the surge events, like how frequently have you experienced surge events? And I think there were some comments not only on flooding, but on the retention ponds and their adequacy. I was wondering if you can comment on that and just how frequently do you experience surge events with the current retention ponds?
I'm probably going to defer to the engineering, to Scott, who's the engineer on that. I mean, I didn't size the pond. I'm not an engineer. But, these are calculable events. It doesn't mean that we can predict the future perfectly, but the ponds are sized according to what FEMA maps and those kind of things would dictate. So I believe those are covered, but I'll defer to Scott on engineering on questions regarding engineering. Are there any other questions,
You
non-engineering?
guys got anything else for Phil? No? Okay, well, we will.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for coming back. We'll close the.
Can Scott?
Scott, would you want to come up and address the retention pond?
Yeah, Scott Becker with Hodge and Associates, 405 South Washington. The detention ponds are sized for, the various storms. As far as exactly what surge events are going to, generally the largest events that these will see will be a microburst in that area versus a rain on snow event upstream. That's not going to flood the detention ponds, but a microburst in the neighborhood, that's where you're going to see that surge. And so that's generally what we calculate for is the highest storms that affect the subdivision.
So this development might help the situation make with,
I believe it will because right now we send so much water to that 2-foot culvert that directs it right at Bridge Street. That water will not. That culvert's going to just be abandoned, so it shouldn't see any more of that water surge.
Okay.
One other point I did have though, there was some question about lighting, and as you know, the city of Moscow has full cutoff lighting, and I believe it's to 15 feet. So it's really not going to brighten the sky much, especially sitting in that valley.
okay. All right, Scott, thank you. All right, anyone got any other questions? So we'll close this public hearing, open it up amongst us. If we have any comments or discussion or what you guys think? Any comments or discussion or?
Well, things are built according to a serviceable plan. If people do not maintain the steep hillsides and allow them to go to weeds, then that becomes a control issue, not a development issue. It's not up to the developer to do weed control on someone's private property. You have to complain so somebody can go out there and somebody official goes out there and makes the owners do something. And if people don't use their garages, that's their choice, but it is designed to have garages for cars, not for storage. And part of the problems that occur are because people don't do what things are intended to be done, how they're intended to be done. But we can't tell an owner or a developer, well, your neighbor's not going to follow the rules, and so we're not going to let you do anything. You know, you have to. I hope you can understand that. You have to take some action on your own part if you want to try and control it. And we don't get to just say to people, you don't get to build something because the neighbors aren't going to take care of stuff. You know, it's not in our power, and it's not right to a private owner to not allow them to develop something or because of bad behavior or insufficient behavior or alternative behavior because they want to use their garage for storage instead of cars, you know. And we can't control who moves in. So if it's students who move in and it increases the number of cars, it wasn't designed that way. And if that's what happens, it's not something we can control. And it's not something we can just willy-nilly say no to. So I understand these problems. I live in an area that's got them. But I want to point that out.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
Has anyone got anything else? Any comments or?
I just had one.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, I think like understandably, density is a challenge. Like you're enjoying a community in a space that is enjoying some open space right now. But I would say that a big part of us being able to chip away at the affordable housing problem in the community is supply. And that comes with density, you know, and, you know, I think this is a mix. It's not all twin homes. I think there's 18 proposed twin homes. I think the rest are single family homes. And so, you know, it's infill development as well. It's not kind of sprawl outside. And so it appeals, I think, to at least me, I would say, for those reasons. You know, obviously the price point is quite high and there's not a whole lot you can do on the economics of building costs and also for the buyers and their ability to afford it. So, you know, but I think the best we can do is have a mix of this type of housing within city limits and that has some access to bike lanes. And, you know, and I think this is like a good proposal for that reason.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Anyone else have anything? Joel, Nels, what you thinking?
You're thinking down.
I will.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
I will say that with with many proposals that we face as a commission, we hear the parking issue come up. It comes up again and again. I'm perhaps not one to talk about it too much since we own 3 vehicles for one property. Many people do. And parking is a perennial problem. I rather doubt that it's going to be different for the extension of the twin homes a little bit further up into the property. There will probably continue to be parking problems. We are a culture that likes to have our vehicles.
Yeah.
And the only thing that will cause people to eventually have less vehicles is that the parking problem becomes intolerable and people have less vehicles. We're fighting with culture.
Yeah, I agree. I've been up in that area several times. I do notice there's parking on the streets, but it wasn't a detriment. I mean, I didn't notice, it wasn't a big thing to me, but I don't live there, so. But I do understand the concern. How about you guys, Nelson? Anything?
I think that, as you all know, this project's been around for a while, i.e. 20 years. And several of us on the commission, including somebody in the audience, have been here. We can't assist development. We can't change the issues that occasionally can come up with various kinds of development around the city. And the fact that this piece of property has been a little tricky and perhaps for whatever issues, it's remained undeveloped, and it's caused those of you who live nearby to sit there and fester about it. Hello. I think I get that. I'm not one of those people since I live in the middle of the city, and but I do understand unintended circumstances in the sense that as we're talking about parking, it happens that I live on a busy street and people park on that busy street constantly. And we have friends who come and visit us and who are used to living in more bucolic residential area, and they say, oh my God, look there's cars out there. What's going on? Well, people are parking in the street. You have to get used to that. And turns out I've only lived there for 45 years, but I have gotten used to it. And I just realized that the change that you're looking at here on this property has caused some concerns. And yet, like Victoria said, we think the planning has been basically appropriate.
Laid out, yeah.
And so we can't make rules about how people live their lives. And I would just respond to that. So I feel your pain in a way, but it's there. And of course, we've heard you before on other times. For those of us who've watched this for 20 years, we know what you're going to say already, almost. And yet, I don't see a way that we can vote against a project that is according to development standards. So I'm sorry about that. But I think that's the way that it will go. It's all
Thanks,
yours.
Nels. No, thank you. Anyone else? That's about it.
I have a question for Mike.
Yeah.
What about the discussion of, instead of connecting Jansen and Third, and turning that into a pedestrian path? Do you want to speak to that?
Well, there's the current MOU that requires the developer to construct that. It's between the council and the developer. So, we can't change that. The only entity, the body that can change that would be the council.
This goes to council after us.
Correct.
So at that point, you can bring it up to council. The counselor here tonight, so he's listening. You have two counselors here tonight, so they're listening. But that, if we can't do anything about it, it's at the next level, then that would be your chance to bring that up again.
Yeah, that'd be the place. Okay, anything else, you guys? We're going to need a motion one way or the other, or more discussion. Got two things we're working on. The rezone, and preliminary plat.
One additional question for Mike. If this pedestrian versus Jansen Street goes to the commission and the commission chooses to change the MOU, will this come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for reapproval, or will it just be approved from there after the city council looks at it?
It would come back to the commission for final plat approval. So there wouldn't be any discussion at that point. The council makes the final decision on that, and then the commission would review it one more time, but it would be at the final plat stage.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else? Joel?
You want a combined motion, or do we need to do the zone change separate?
I think it'd be better to do two motions, one for the zoning and one for the preliminary plat.
I would move that the request for a rezone of this 2.6 acre area be approved as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. We will start with Matt.
Aye.
For you?
Aye.
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 And aye. Okay. Now we have the preliminary subdivision plat. For 17.2 acres.
I'd move to approve with the condition that city council looks at the pedestrian pathway versus the, what's the name of the street extension?
Jansen.
The
Jansen?
Jansen Street extension, to make that consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. What'd you say? What'd you say? Is that good, Mike?
Is that good? Is that phrased okay?
Sure.
All right, that's good.
Okay, we'll start down here, Joel.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Tori?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so passed. And now
I move we direct staff to prepare the relevant criteria and standards.
we do that with
Second.
what we have going, you can do that?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the, compare the relative criteria standard. Go with Matt.
Aye.
Tori? Nels?
Aye.
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 Joel? Aye. All right, that one is complete. We'll go on to number 4, public hearing, proposal for a variance at 510 and 520 Empire Lane. Mike? Everybody hates us.
When will this ever get out?
Everybody hates us.
When people do what they're
The difference is that everybody
use their garages.
It's perfect. Right? Just kidding. Let's go. It's done. Let's go. Thirsty. Where are you going? Oh, thirsty. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So before you tonight, this is the public hearing for a variance request at 510 Empire Lane. The applicant's Jerry Schutz requesting a variance from the required 15-foot exterior setback standard as outlined in the Manufactured Home Park Code within the Empire Mobile Home Park located at 510 Empire Lane. And typically the commission doesn't review variance requests, but since this is a manufactured home park, it's stated that the commission would review a variance request associated with that. And so that's why this is before you tonight. This request is to accommodate a proposed lot line adjustment and lot division, which cannot move forward as proposed without approval of the variance. The lot line adjustment and lot division request is proposing to divide a 1-acre lot in the southeast corner of the site, which contains a site-built single-family dwelling and accessory outbuilding addressed as 700 Empire Lane from the remainder of the mobile home park lot of 9.2 acres in size. So this is the subject properties highlighted in blue, center of your screen. You have Empire Lane here to the south, and then North Polk Street extension here located to the west, Quail Run to the southwest, Britton Lane. Then you have PCEI located down here to the southeast. Just a closer view of the manufactured home park, Empire Lane and Polk Street, and then vacant property here to the east. Looking at the zoning configuration of the area, properties within the R4 zone, which is multiple family residential, as well as properties to the west and to the north. To the south, portions of the R3 zone as it transitions to R2 here to the southwest. And then PCI campus, portions of farm ranch and ag forest there to the southeast. Per Moscow City Code, the R4 zoning district provides for the most intense residential land uses permitted in the community. It's to be applied where activity levels are high and adequate public facilities are available, especially near the U of I campus or the central business district. And then adequate transportation access should be given high priority in determining the appropriate location for R4 zones. And then per our city code, mobile home parks are permitted use within the R4 zoning district. And then other uses, really a wide range of residential uses, including single family, 2-family, twin homes, townhouses, multifamily dwellings. Then various other commercial uses such as professional offices, bed and breakfast, daycare facilities, and parking lots. Taking a look at the manufactured home park portion of the code, that's Title 6, Chapter 2. There's a requirement for a buffer area, which states that all manufactured home lot lines and all structures within a manufactured home park shall be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the property line of the development. The need for a buffer area shall be determined by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If the Planning and Zoning Commission determines a need for a buffer area, a site obscuring fence or evergreen hedge at least 6 feet in height shall be maintained within the rear and side buffer areas. Such fence or hedge across the front of the development shall be set back at least 10 feet from the front property line. The remainder of the buffer yard area will be landscaped as determined in the development plan submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So this is what it's occurring. You can kind of tell from the aerial. This is the portion. This is the stick-built structure here in the southeast corner with the shop. And then there's 2 manufactured homes directly adjacent to that. You can see the proposed property line that splits the 2 manufactured homes, as well as the stick-built and shop structure, goes and then jogs here to the east, northwest, and then back to the north. And so that would be the lot division, lot line adjustment configuration that the applicant's wanting to achieve. So just a closer view of the structures, the two manufactured homes here, stick-built structure here, and the shop located here. So this was submitted by the engineer for the applicant, which shows a survey of the property, which shows that property line. You can see the dimensions really ranging from about 1/2 a foot to larger dimensions between the separations of the property line being proposed here. And then closer views of that. So one of the manufactured homes here, about 5 or a half foot away from the roof line of the proposed property line. And then the concrete porch a little bit closer than that. This is attached to the stick-built dwelling at 700 Empire Lane. Applicant submitted some photos. This is a view from the backyard of the manufactured home. This is looking north. This is the shop structure here, manufactured home here to the west. This is looking south. So this would be the stick-built dwelling and the other manufactured home located here. There's made mention of a retaining wall. You can see that retaining wall there and the elevation difference between the two. Just another view of that same area looking south. And then a view from Jerry Lane looking south. That's the shop structure and the manufactured home there, space 18. And then from the shop, this is another view looking south, quite a bit of vegetation already there. So there was one issue that's come up recently within the last day or two, and that was the ownership of Empire Lane. So it appears that there was intended to be a 10-foot dedication of right-of-way as part of a prior development of the manufactured home park. There's 19 feet of dedication along Empire Lane for another plat that occurred to the south. And then there still appears to be some type of private ownership for the property here at the very end of Empire Lane. And so while we sort through that, there's a recommended condition from staff as we get to that slide. So looking at the relevant criteria and standards in order to approve a variance, there's 3 of them. The first one is the applicant has demonstrated that special conditions and or circumstances exist which are peculiar to the property, such as size, shape, topography, or location, which are not applicable to other properties similarly situated in the same zone. The applicant's demonstrated that because of the aforementioned special conditions of the property, application of the provisions of the zoning code would impose undue hardship and would deprive the property owner of rights commonly enjoyed by owners of other properties similarly situated in the same zoning district, and that granting of the variance will not be in conflict with the public interest or injurious to property or persons in the vicinity of the subject property. So staff recommends the commission conduct the public hearing and upon consideration of testimony presented, approve the variance to allow the reduced setbacks between the existing manufactured homes located on lots 18 and 19 of Empire Mobile Home Park and a proposed property line to the east with the following conditions. That a 36-inch solid fence be installed on top of the retaining wall for any portion of the wall where the height of the retaining wall exceeds 30 inches. And this is a building code requirement for safety, essentially, and also provides some type of buffering there, as was mentioned in the manufactured home park code. And then this would be an addition based upon the private ownership discovery on Empire Lane, that it shall be determined by the city attorney that adequate legal public access exists from Empire Lane to the subject property prior to proceeding with the proposed lot division, lot line adjustment request. I'd certainly try to answer any questions you had about this.
Okay, you have any questions for Mike? So like in a synopsis, what's being done here? Just like in a quick.
Well, the applicant's just trying to divide off one property from the rest of the manufactured home park. That one property contains essentially a stick-built single-family dwelling, which is different than a manufactured home. So they're trying to divide that off. Typically, you don't have the commingling of manufactured mobile homes with stick-built structures within manufactured home parks. And so that's certainly, the applicant can talk about that a little bit further, but that's essentially what he's trying to do. And in order to do that, there's a setback requirement for the exterior property line that's 15 feet in the manufactured home park code in order to run the property line to split the two manufactured homes with the stick-built structure. You can't meet the 15-foot setback requirements and thus requesting a variance.
Okay. Thank you.
setbacks in order to facilitate the lot division.
Thank you. Joel?
I assume that all of the buildings in question are previously in place. So have been there for years. So
Correct.
yeah, which
Helps.
the buildings pre-existing buildings that are non-conforming to the requirements of the code, to me, suggests that the proposal to
Change?
basically, I guess I like the proposal.
Yeah, perfect. It's good enough, Joe. Good enough. Go ahead, Matt.
What's the reasoning for the jogging of the lot lines?
You have to ask the applicant that. I'm unaware of what the reason.
Second question, we talked a little earlier about this, but are there any fire safety issues due to the proximity of the two buildings? There's not a whole lot of setback. Any concerns there?
The fire marshal's reviewed the proposal and hasn't indicated if there's any concerns between that. And then certainly with the property line, the building department will look at fire separation and required building code requirements, and they'd have to make any modifications for that based upon the property line. So.
All right. Thanks, Mike. All right, we will open the public hearing. And Scott, you want to come up, applicant, or who's the applicant? Jerry?
Jerry Schutz, 700 Empire Lane. To answer the question, Dad started the park in 1968 on the 20-acre parcel. It was in the county at the time. It was annexed into the city 1999, 2000. We're kind of unsure on those two. That was because we were part of the the North Polk Extension Sewer District. And the reason that the condition on Empire Lane has been brought up was because the title company found that the Empire Lane, there's the 21-foot right-of-way that was dedicated as a driveway to Affinity Farms, which was prior to, it was Claude and Edna Wright, was never processed by the city as to become a city street. It's been treated as a city street since 2000 when we came into the city. However, that's the little archive there, or artifact. As far as the house goes, you can't get a homeowner's equity or a home equity loan on a house that doesn't sit on its own parcel. So if I tried, which I tried, to get a home equity loan, I have to do it on the entire mobile home park, not the house. So the idea is Dad never actually cleaned things up. So we want to separate the mobile home park into its own taxing parcel. We want to put the house into a 1-acre parcel. And then to answer the question about the jog on the back, that's to make sure that there's 5 acres from the back part of the property. So, I hired professionals to actually do the engineering and do the drawings, and they did a much better job than we did on our original ones. So, other questions for me?
Question for Jerry? No, all right, thank you, man.
Outstanding.
Okay. So we will entertain anyone in favor of this. You want to speak?
Scott Sumner, 106 South Hayes in Moscow. You guys see me with many hats in public and professional, and this is actually a personal one. The trailer in question in the southwest or south, just next to west of the house, is my dad's trailer. He's lived there for 34 years. He's 81 years old, and I am hoping that he never has to move. So without the variance, and if it comes down to it and the trailer has to go, I'd probably have to move into my house, which would probably be a little too close to comfort. So I'm just hoping that it's been a condition that they've both lived with. It's been there. It's not a fire hazard. That it's since the entirety of the trailer park. So I'm hoping that this is something that is routine and you guys can accept. So there's my comment.
Thanks, Scott. Anyone else in favor? Anyone want to speak against this? How about in general? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. I don't guess we have any rebuttal. And we'll open it up with discussions here, if we have any.
This is basic housekeeping on existing properties. There's really no issue here other than to put the conditions on it that have been brought up.
Is that a motion?
Well.
Or do you have, does anyone else have anything to add?
Motion, and I'm not sure what to say. Somewhere in
Okay,
this
how about
pile.
you?
I'm good.
Matt, you good? I think I'm good with it too.
So here it is.
What's that? There we go. There you go.
Okay, I motion approval of the variance with the conditions of having the 36-inch solid fence installed at the top of the retaining wall for any portion of the wall where the height of the retaining wall exceeds 30 inches. And secondly, that the city, that adequate legal public access is maintained from Empire Lane to the subject property prior to proceeding with a proposed lot division or lot line adjustment.
Okay, we have a motion. Thanks,
second.
Victoria. And we have a second. Thanks, Richie. We'll start with.
Aye.
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 Victoria, Matt?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we have to the relevant criteria, right?
Correct.
So we got a direct staff motion for that.
I move we have staff prepare the relevant criteria and
I
stuff.
have a motion, direct
I'll
staff.
second.
And I have a second. Hey, Matt?
Aye.
Victoria? Mills?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next on the list, number 5, public hearing, legislative hearing providing the amendment to Title 4, Chapters 1, 3, and 6 of the Moscow City Code regarding amendments to accessory dwelling units and manufactured home requirements.
Can I say something? By the way, I didn't notice we have 3 counselors here tonight. So anybody listening and wants to come back for the last issue when it comes to 3 counselors are here tonight.
Yes.
I couldn't see one of them.
We are so loved.
It's unusual, but we have 3.
Okay. All right, Mike?
Thank you again, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. So this is a public hearing. This is a legislative hearing providing for the amendment of Title 4, Chapters 1, 3, 6 of Moscow City Code. And this is pertaining to amendments to ADUs and manufactured home requirements. And this is an ordinance that the Commission's been working on for the last 2-3 months. And so this began with House Bill 800, manufactured homes. So the legislature, this last legislative section, made 2 changes to manufactured homes. One allows for manufactured duplexes to be placed on multifamily lots, and also allows single-section manufactured homes that are at least 400 square feet to be placed on lots zoned for single-family homes, and multi-sectional manufactured homes that are at least 800 square feet to be placed on lots zoned for multifamily homes. So state code requires that all land zoned single-family residential allow for the siting of manufactured homes, which we currently abide by in the city of Moscow. The governing board may adopt any or all of the following placement standards or any less restrictive standards for the approval of manufactured homes located outside of manufactured home parks. And we've essentially adopted all these standards in our current code. So it has to be at least 1,000 square feet in size and multi-sectional, and has to be placed on essentially a excavated and backfilled foundation so that the perimeter of the home is located not more than 12 inches above grade, except when placed on a basement foundation. And it has to have at least a 312 pitch roof. And it has to have exterior siding and roofing, which are a color, material, appearance, and similar to the exterior siding and roofing material commonly used on residential dwellings within the community, or which is comparable to the predominant materials used on surrounding dwellings as determined by the local permit approval authority. So that's what state code says. And then also shall have a garage or carport constructed of like materials if zoning ordinances would require a newly constructed manufactured home to have a garage or a carport, which we currently don't. And then in addition to the provisions of paragraphs A through E of this subsection, a city or county may subject a manufactured home in the lot upon which it is sited to any development standard, architectural requirements, and minimum size requirements to which conventional single-family residential dwellings on the same lot would be subjected to. So looking at manufactured homes in Moscow, so we're, as I mentioned previously, we permit them on really any single-family lot in town. They have to be 1,000 square feet, still the excavated and backfilled foundation, not 12 inches above grade, 312 pitch roof, exterior siding, roofing materials, which is approved by the city. So to be in compliance with state code requirements, we're proposing to amend the code as follows, so that just that first section may be either a single section or multi-sectional, and shall enclose a space at least 400 square feet for a single section or 800 square feet for a multi-sectional manufactured home. And then adding under subsection B, except when placed on a basement foundation. So that'd be the exemption to the 12-inch restriction on the foundation. We move along to Senate Bill 1354, which addressed accessory dwelling units. So it adds a new section to state code, which previously wasn't there. Essentially states that no city shall ban ADUs in any residential zoning area. And then by February 1st, we have to essentially amend the code in order to be in compliance with this Senate bill. We have to allow for either one internal accessory dwelling unit within a single family dwelling or one detached accessory dwelling unit per lot in the rear, or subject to setback required of the primary dwelling. Prohibit requiring any off-street parking or guest parking for any accessory dwelling unit unless the principal dwelling unit does not have off-street parking, or the street is not paved and designed or constructed for on-street parking, or unless the principal dwelling unit is within a quarter mile of transit, an employment area, or commercial services. Then prohibit imposing impact fees or utility connection fees greater than those imposed on other single-family dwellings. And then prohibit limiting the size of the ADU to less than 1,000 square feet or 75% of the size of the primary dwelling. We have to prohibit owner occupancy requirements for the primary dwelling or for the accessory dwelling unit. And we're prohibited from imposing a limit on the building height that is less than the height of the existing single-family primary dwelling on the lot. And prohibited from restrictions for ADUs that are more restrictive than restrictions for single-family dwellings within the same zoning district with regard to setbacks, lot size, or coverage, or building frontage. So that brings us to the current ADU requirements within our code. We have an applicability and purpose statement in the very beginning, which is similar to all the other development standard sections. There's specific standards, essentially stating that ADUs must meet all applicable regulations for the zoning districts in which they are located, except as otherwise expressly stated within this section. There's some amendments to the size. So currently we restrict those to 600 square feet or 40% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling. So the amendments would be 1,000 square feet or 75% of the gross floor area of the principal dwellings, whichever less. Maximum occupancy. Currently, there's nothing within state code which really addresses the maximum occupancy, but through just discussions with the commission decided to increase that from 2, which we currently have, to 4, just based upon the size increase for the ADU. And then we're removing the owner occupancy section of the code. And then off-street parking, we currently require 1 additional off-street parking space for the ADU. So to be consistent with state code, we're not going to adopt whether the street's paved or within certain distance of transit. It's just specifically for 1 additional off-street parking space for the ADU, only if there's currently no off-street parking spaces provided for the principal dwelling on the property. And then the parking table needed to be amended as well. So accessory dwelling unit, essentially just stating what I just stated. Only if there's no parking provided for the principal structure on the property. And then this is just a cleanup from the last amendment, single family, the terminology would be dwelling unit. So that would just be a cleanup. So with that, after conducting the public hearing, considering testimony received, staff's recommendation is to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance to city council. I'd certainly try to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. You guys have any questions for Mike?
What, coming back to parking, is there any possibility of a parking requirement if the building is located, the principal structure is located on a street which does not, is no parking, has no parking allowed?
Yeah, the state code doesn't allow that to happen. There's only specific circumstances where we can require parking and we can, so it's, let's pull it up.
Because we do have a number of streets which have no parking allowed on the street.
So this is the section. So we're prohibited from requiring any off-street parking or guest parking for any accessory dwelling unit unless the principal dwelling does not have off-street parking, the street's not paved and designed or constructed for on-street parking, or unless the principal dwelling unit is within a quarter mile of transit, an employment area, or commercial services.
So there is an exception for unpaved and no parking.
Yeah, unpaved and currently no parking.
Matt, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, why not adopt the exception for the 1/4 mile of transit?
Well, there was supposed to be a not included within there, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you have the, not within if it's within a quarter mile of transit employment area, then yeah, there should probably be no parking. But, if it's not within that, then, you should provide parking. So, that was we got clarification for that. Idaho APA submitted, I think, some text for this, and between what got adopted and what they'd submitted, there was a not that was missing in that. So
We don't want to put it in there. Got it.
Any more questions for Mike? All right, thanks, Mike. Okay, with that, we will open up the public hearing and ask for anyone to speak that's in favor. Niels.
You're totally good.
Nils Peterson, Executive Director, Hills and Rivers Housing Trust, 627 North Van Buren. I'm speaking in favor of this. I was on P&Z when the original ADU amendments were adopted. And at the time, I argued that there were two poison pills in what we adopted, the owner occupancy piece and the parking piece. And those poison pills were not me saying that. They were some studies of ADU cities across the Pacific Northwest, and having those in impeded the development of ADUs. So I am in favor of this, and I am glad to see that we're finally getting to the point of removing those two obstacles to development of ADUs.
Yes. Thanks, Nils. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Jerry?
First off, Jerry Schutz, Moscow, Idaho. Thank you, because I remember how hard legislative changes were. You spent 5 meetings probably going through it before you finally got 2 drafts that you had to go through to get here. looks great, sounds great. The question is, are we saying that you can't require because I wasn't quite clear on Joel's question. Can you not require a parking spot for the ADU? Period. Unless the street is actually signified as non-parking, or there's no parking on the street. Is that what I really heard?
If it's not paved and there's no parking, then
Is that an and an or is it
has to be
not paved or no parking? Because like if you look at some of our collector street, or not collector, but neighborhood streets that don't have parking on the street, are you going to have to stripe a parking spot for it?
Third Street.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You're going to run into another legislative angle in that you can't require something more heavily on an ADU than you do on the residence. The house is there, whether it has parking out front or not. So you're not going to be able to say, but the ADU has to have a higher standard than the house.
Well, if you're building a house, I'm going to say you still have to put in a garage or a carport. So you're not actually putting something else onto an ADU. You're just saying, there's no street parking here. You have to put a parking spot in. And just, I can see it as a one of those things the city doesn't want to get involved in, lawsuits. So that's my thing. But I think it's great. Approve it. Thanks.
Thank you. Where are we at now? Anyone else in favor of this? Great.
Matthew Becker, 214 North Polk, Moscow. I think this is great, but I think the bigger issue, we should do more stuff like this. I just think we should get to the point the state doesn't have to force us to. We're creating restrictions rather than solutions as a rule in this town. And everybody is complaining about low-income housing, affordable housing. The entire city council ran on affordable housing and solutions, and all we've done is created restrictions that creates unaffordable housing. It's the exact same thing that every single liberal city did in the 90s and 2000s, and they're reversing course completely in every city in the entire country. So we need more solutions. Or they're going to pass more laws, and they're just going to circumvent anything our city wants to do. That's why this happened, is simply from other cities doing things, and the Airbnb thing is the same. And there's going to be more legislation that's just going to force the hand of staff,
Right.
which is what this was.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Okay, is anyone else in favor? Anyone opposed? In general? Okay, we will close this public hearing and open it up for discussion. I think it's pretty cut and dry. Everyone seems to like it. I mean, not much we can do,
Yeah, it's
right? Cut and dry.
as Jerry said, but I will say that in that part of the city and this commission, before I was even on it, working toward affordable housing was to create ADUs, and we did not have many restrictions on it. We have restrictions, they're there for a reason, whether you agree with them or not. They're not just there because we decided to be an obstacle. So ADUs were something that was pursued by planning and zoning in the city to help with affordable housing. And the changes that have come down from the legislature are not perfect, but they're there, and that's what we have. And some of them are probably improvements.
Anyone else got anything to add?
I think I'd only add that, I would agree that it's like affordability in the country, particularly around housing, is like, a topic that's long been needed and it's been discussed. And I think, I'm excited to see this advanced. Of course, I think we probably have feelings about having the state override local authority in doing so, but I think nonetheless, it's a step in the right direction. And I'm hoping that, folks see that as like something that we're responding to, like, and we're going to embrace. And I think the next step would be like, hopefully we see landowners and homeowners respond, and build it.
Anyone else? Okay, we need a discussion or a motion.
I intend to vote for it. And I predict that the number of parking complaints that we're going to hear over the time here will be increasing. But we should steel ourselves for it.
Exactly. Okay, so anyone else got anything to add? Motion majority. Nothing? Nothing?
Let's move this on down the pike.
Yeah, let's go. Speak up.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance to the city council.
So move.
We have a second from Joel. Okay, we'll start in here with Matt.
Aye.
Victoria? Joel?
Aye.
Nils? Aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
Joel? Aye. All right, well, that one's good. Finally. Get out of here, right? Okay, number 6, approval of a reason statement and relevant criteria and standards. This is a proposal for the comprehensive plan, land use designation and zoning designation for a 44.01 acre area proposed to be annexed to the city of Moscow and generally located on the west side of Orchard Avenue, north of Orchard Avenue Trail Road intersection. This is the one we've done too, right? It's just, yeah.
Relevant criteria and standards.
So we're just doing the relevant criteria and standards. So you guys, huh?
We're approving them, right?
Yep.
Lost- where's the sheet?
So I just need a motion and a,
Is this it? Where's the minutes? I lost my piece of paper.
this is what we gave them. We're just doing the relevant criteria and standards for it.
Yeah, the two documents are attached to your packet tonight for your review, but it was the comp plan designation and the zoning designation. So you have to review those and approve with modifications or deny those.
I move we approve them. We've been through them, so let's approve them. For both. I can't find the piece of paper
I
that says.
second.
So we have a motion for both of these. Is that okay, Mike, to just do both of them at the same time?
Sure.
We have a motion and a second. We'll start with Joel.
Aye.
Aye.
I think I'll abstain.
Abstention, aye.
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 All right, that is gone. So we're done with that. Now we're on to the citizen survey questions, number 7.
This might take us over.
Victoria's question here. Good one. That was good.
So yeah, it's just a continuation of the citizen survey questions that we're supposed to come up with 2 by the end of this month. So we have this meeting and one other meeting to solidify those. Victoria and Matt are the only commissioners who did their homework here and submitted questions after the last meeting. So I've got Victoria suggested 2014, if we were to use questions that we had used in the past, that the one for 2014 would probably be the most likely. This is where we just talked about 2 neighborhood characteristics, an option, kind of the check which one's important to you. And then there was another one from, I can't recall the year, but this is the question. So preference on options to increase housing density in the city. And then rate that.
And then I hope I copied these over correctly, but there was, if we're coming up with new questions, she suggested, the first one, if there was more sufficient housing options, are you primarily interested in A, B, or C, less than 5 years living in Moscow, 5 to 15 years living in Moscow, or C, more than 15 years living in Moscow? Next one would either be rank your primary interest in residential housing while living in Moscow, or rank your top 5 choices for residential housing while living in Moscow. The choices listed are the same for either both of those questions and to be ranked. So short-term housing, long-term housing, single-family residence, private home, apartment or apartment complex, mixed development residence, above or below a small business, mobile home, condo, duplex, ADU, twin home, townhouse, or other. And Matt's first one was housing stability and affordability. Which of the following housing challenges, if any, has your household experienced during the past 2 years? Select all that apply. Housing costs exceeding what we can comfortably afford, difficulty finding a suitable home to rent, difficulty purchasing a home, concern about having to leave Moscow because of housing costs, difficulty finding housing accessible to a household member, poor housing condition or deferred maintenance, or none of the above. Second one, for support for different housing approaches. To what extent you support or oppose each of the following approaches to increasing Moscow's housing supply? Accessory dwelling units on existing residential lots, duplexes, triplexes, or townhomes in existing neighborhoods, apartment or condominiums near downtown and commercial corridors, small homes and lots in new developments, mixed income or income restricted housing, additional single-family development at the city's edge. So response scale between strongly support to strongly oppose. Preferred pattern of future growth. So which statement comes closest to how you believe Moscow should accommodate future population growth? Primarily through infill and redevelopment within the existing city, primarily through new development at the city's edges, through a balanced combination of infill and outward expansion. Moscow should seek to limit population growth, or don't know. Transportation barriers and investment priorities. Which 3 transportation improvements would most improve your ability to travel safely and conveniently in Moscow? Sidewalk construction or repair, safer bicycle routes, safer street crossings, expanded public transportation, improved snow removal, better street maintenance, reduced traffic congestion, additional downtown parking, traffic calming in neighborhoods, or improved accessibility for people with disabilities. And the last one's planning process, accessibility, and trust. Thinking about land use and development decisions in Moscow, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following statements? I can easily learn about proposed developments that may affect me. P&Z information is understandable. There are meaningful opportunities to provide input before decisions are made. Similar projects and applicants are treated consistently. City decisions adequately balance community-wide needs with neighborhood concerns.
Great questions.
Good stuff. Yeah. Okay, what you guys got to say on all that? You guys like anything? Fall in love with any of those questions?
I wish I had them in front of me where I could read them all. This is really hard.
I can flip through again if we want to.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest, I'm not proposing all 5.
Oh, yeah, I know.
But, generally the idea would be pick 2, like, what would give us a really effective mandate that's like recent that you can point to in conversations like this for, like when we have, for example, density, and you can be like, well, like, like we have people come out to give public comment, but I think you can also point to some of this and like give direction as well. And I know that's going to be a regular topic every time a new proposal comes up for annexation or anything, but it's useful, I think, to get like a really kind of clear mandate in terms of typology or like, types of development that's coming from the survey. But that's kind of, I think, the logic behind some of them.
Yeah.
I finished this at 10 o'clock last night, so I'm not quite sure how clear my thinking was at that point. But let me explain a little bit on mine. I'm not married to 15 years. I just tried to pick time scales here. So the first question, to have an ideal, are we dealing with people who are only here for a short time, or are we dealing with, so they only care about apartments and getting through school or whatever? And are we dealing with people who want long-term homes? And I picked 5 years for getting through school with a basic degree, which could be 10 years if you go to PhD, but get through your bachelor's, or maybe an early job where you move on to something better. And I picked 15 to have something substantial. I'm not married to that number, but I wanted it to be a significant number. And then those who might choose to live here forever. And that was because we have different clientele, if you want to look at it that way, in town. And it's my throat here. So I want, because that really tips how people think about housing. And so that was what my first question was leaning toward. And then when I sent it to Mike, I said, this may need editing. I'm just getting some down on paper. So if you go to question 2, actually, I think I like the second question 2 better, but that came even later. Anyway, I can't get my throat to work. Yeah, I was looking to find out what kind of housing people want. I did not put tiny homes in here. You could, but I didn't because it's so hard to figure out. You have to put in there a definition. If it's on wheels, I mean, you'd have to say mobile homes and tiny homes on wheels. And you'd have to say a single home or a tiny home on a foundation. You could put it in there, but tiny homes are also not in so much in favor these days either. And there's somebody really likes a tiny home, they can write it on there. But I just tried to think of all the different kind of housing that we have. I don't know if I missed anything, to find out what people are interested in living in, buying or renting, whatever. And so I just basically listed them. It's probably better if you do a ranked choice for maybe 5, because we don't need to know your 11th choice. You're probably going to, or your 4 choices, or your 5 choices, whatever. So that was where I was going. I didn't think the former questions were that germane to what we need to be looking at. And so that's what I came up with. I like a lot of Matt's. There's a couple I would not pick. I'm just going to keep talking if you want to keep floating through here.
Yeah.
And I liked this one a lot. This seemed really the kinds of challenges we have. Yeah, and that, I don't know where that leaves us, but it sure gives us some good information as to what people are needing and looking for. So this one I thought which is the first time I've seen it, is right now, which I think this one's good. The second one, this one I'm not so much in favor of, because we already have accessory, we already have these things, and so I'm not. It's not about supporting or opposing them as much. I don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't quite fit, because if people are going to say, well, I don't like townhouses and triplexes, they're allowed. So I'm not sure why we need to know that. It doesn't tell me how people move into homes. You have 5 questions. It doesn't have to be that's just not going to be my top choice. So if we go to 3, this is a pretty good question, although, availability is going to dictate the result of this. I'm always conscious of, if you put out a survey and you suggest options, you suggest you're going to do something about it. And if there's no infill, we can't do anything about it unless, it's not we go tear down a house and make it infill, or we take a lot and turn it into infill. So this is not going to be one of my favorite ones either. I just don't find it as useful. Number 4, and you all can talk when I get done. This is okay. They're going to be shocked when they find out who pays for sidewalks. It's a can of worms, but anyway. Yeah, I mean, it gives you information on much. I kind of want to stay away from too much on the traffic side because we have Transportation Commission and they go to traffic.
That was my thought too.
So I probably wouldn't pick that one. So that means I must be picking this one out for 2 out of these 5. Oh, well, okay. Well, you can kind of predict what they're going to say, and they kind of say it at city council too. Well, I didn't know about it, but it is out there. But you have to look for it or you have to pay attention. You have to read the paper. You know, you have to do something to see that what's out there. But it's an okay question. Yeah, I mean, it would give you some insight on how they were responding. So anyway, that's my reactions to my own questions and to Matt's.
Perfect. Thanks, Victoria. Anyone else got anything to add?
If
Any
I
suggestions, comments?
if I may, not
Sage?
to make any comment as to your decision making on this. I think in general these are great questions. I more so have some questions for you, Mike, and just staff in general as this commission surveys put together, because all the commissions are each contributing 2 questions, right? So I mean, I have a couple thoughts. So one, the design of a survey matters a lot in terms of the quality of response you get and what the goal is in terms of what you're going to do with that data, right? So I guess my first question is, when these questions are designed by commissions and submitted, are they put into the survey unedited by staff, or are they re-articulated in a way that's, I guess, consistent with like survey design?
They're typically unedited by staff.
Okay.
Unless administration thinks that there should be an amendment to it. In the past, that's been the only circumstance.
Okay.
But try to improve on the question or try to get clarity out of what the commission's trying to ask.
Okay.
I think that's the only time they've been amended in the past. But yeah, I certainly don't amend them. No.
Okay. And I ask because, I recall years ago trying to design surveys or putting out surveys for various purposes, thinking, oh, these are great questions. This is something I want to know from folks. But then in terms of the respondent data, I went, oh, okay, this is how people answered. And then I had a hard time, I guess, with the aftermath of it. So that's just a thought I had is, okay, in the design of these questions, is it more staff driven or commission driven? And I guess, part 2 of this, so some of these questions had to do with time frame in Moscow or planned time frame in Moscow. Is there a set of questions that sort of broadly captures respondent data, like age range, how long they've been in Moscow, for example, that sort of? Do you know what that data set looks like, or that set of questions?
Yeah, there's typically an age range that's, type of demographic information that's discussed on each survey. I don't know exactly what that is, but yeah, we can certainly pull that up.
Okay.
Or I could be prepared next meeting with that.
And I'm that comes to mind again, because if someone's putting in that data and we're receiving anyway, and then we have a question that sort of doubles up on that, then it eliminates the effectiveness, it could anyway, of asking that question when we could have gotten something else, if that makes sense. So just some thoughts. I survey design is a whole thing. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there for consideration.
Mike said that last time. I don't necessarily agree with it. People who are taking the survey aren't thinking that. And if you just look at the answers, you don't have all that demographic information right in front of you. And I'm not sure that that's because I also am thinking, I mean, I've rarely taken a survey that I thought was good. I'm usually writing a bunch of comments over to the side, this language is
Right.
unclear.
Right.
What are you talking? You're obviously talking about something you know something about and I don't. I don't know what your framework is.
Right.
So I have a lot of problems with surveys in the way they're designed. But and I think there should be some kind of education involved. It can be subtle, but I think it should be there. And if you just say, what kind of house, what do you want to live in? People, I don't know how to phrase this. I don't like surveys. I don't like the way they're designed. And I am looking for a little more comparison in the question. I don't want to have to go back to demographics, and the people who are answering it certainly aren't. They'll never see the results.
I see.
So, but you have a point. It may be redundant, but
I guess another clarifying question, Mike, if I may. So how much can the commission add preface or goal orientation to a question? Like, making a
Background
statement.
information.
Yeah, or making a statement like that's hypothetical. Like, say this situation is proposed. What would your preference be? And you list a number of preferences. How much can you really say in that? Say that X, Y, and Z as part of a question design. Is there room for the question to be half a page long with preface, or is it something that
run into that.
we only have so much, so many characters or so much room?
Yeah, I don't know that we are limited to a certain number of characters in the question, but yeah, I think there's always a concern that the survey is getting exceptionally long. and the
Correct, right.
Return, like the
Yep.
results.
Yep.
The response rates are going to go down because of the length of the survey. That's why they broke it out into two different surveys at one point. Now it's been combined back in.
Okay.
And so I think they probably expect that, there's two questions, and those two questions aren't a page each.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing that happened, because one of my questions got in there from before, and some of the response was, seems like you're slanting how you want the question and answer to go.
It's Q, yeah.
And that's because you put in so much explanation that they feel like, okay, well, you really crafted me into this line that you wanted me to go in. It's like, well, yeah, I really kind of wanted you to be on target, So I've given up that thought. I'm not married to my questions. I think Matt's got good questions.
Okay, thank you for entertaining me. I
No,
again,
that's great.
your discussion, these are things that come to mind when, a survey goes out and we're trying to ideally work with that afterward, right? And staff wants some direction, and council ideally would get some direction from it. So, yeah.
Well, we still have another meeting to decide, so I can compile these into a Word document and send it out in the packet next time. And so we have the time to take a look at it before the meeting. And
Is there
maybe we
anything we want to throw out, or you guys haven't? I mean, we did some work. Would you guys like to say something?
No, I don't have anything to say. I mean, I don't. I think any questions are good. I don't know. You don't know who you're sending them to. You're sending them to all different ages. It's hard. It seems like it's hard to get what you want back, to me. So just sending a generic out is pretty much what we do. And so I don't know how much thought we want to put. I don't know. To me, we just need to figure out what we want to know and send it out. And hopefully, I mean, unless you just pick who you're sending it to, which we don't. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way I feel. Just where we want to know, just ask them and send it out and see what we get back. We have parking, we have housing, we have water, and we have, let's pick one or two, I guess, But yeah, Mike, you can put them together and we'll look them over.
Think
For
about
sure.
it.
Think about them.
If you write another one, give it to Mike ahead of time so we can put it in the pack.
I will. I'm thinking about something.
Do you think either council or staff relies on these questions or in answers? You know, I'm cynical about the whole deal, frankly. And for some of the reasons that, you know, and so we go through this motion, big deal. The question that comes to me, I'd be people who spend more time than I do. Are there 10 people on the help run the city, or the people on council spend more time than I do, certainly. So I'd be curious if anybody feels like they've been refreshed and learned anything from these, or whether this is just eyewash. I'm like I said, I'm not convinced. I'm unwilling. She's worked really hard on this, and I really appreciate that. But you're going to send this thing out, and you might get a few graduate students, a few undergrads, a few old people who are angry about life in general. And here we have some.
Yeah, I didn't know if you guys sent it out in sectors or how it's sent out, or.
It's a random sampling of the community. So it's about 1,200 addresses. Those are just chosen at random. And they're coded to figure out what section of the city they're in. So I think it's divided up into 6 different sectors. And then we can identify the results and break it down for each sector. But I guess to get to your point, Nels, the ADU code amendment back in 2013, 2014, we asked the question about, you know, would you want to build one in your neighborhood, or do you care if your neighbor builds one? I mean, we got a lot of good information about that allowed us to move forward with that ordinance, because at the time there was, you know, I don't know if you recall, but there was a lot of people that were concerned that we were just eliminating single family zones, essentially going to create duplex zoning throughout the entire city. And it was quite a bit of pushback on that ordinance, that code amendment at the time. And we used that information to pretty much move forward and prove that there was a lot of support for ADUs out there, and then it got adopted. So that was probably the best, you know, set of
I like
questions.
those kind of questions.
type of thing.
Those are good.
The council has gone back to surveys since I watch council meetings all the time, and said, well, citizens are concerned about climate change or are concerned about the aquifer, based on survey results where there were questions, not necessarily us, but, you know, in all the survey, there were questions on that, and people very strongly supported a climate plan, very strongly were concerned about water usage and conservation and so forth and so on. And so the city has used that in their discussions and planning and decisions, and will have referred back to citizen surveys to state that. I don't know that 80% of the questions ever get quoted back, but, you know, there are some that are.
Okay, well, we got a couple of weeks. You can put it together. We'll look at it next time, and meantime, we'll try to think of some more and pertinent questions and something that sticks with us and we want to know, and we'll send it out there, okay? But for now, we'll move on to the Transportation Commission report.
The Transportation Commission will meet tomorrow at 4 o'clock in this room. I note that the question of questions for the survey is on the agenda. And I also note that the Nels's favorite intersection is also again on the agenda.
There you go.
See whether or not
But I'm
the
not, I don't think
Transportation
I'm gonna be
Commission
there.
wants to take
I'm
any
gonna
action.
let it settle for,
You better be there. Okay, so we'll look forward to that report next time, okay? Any announcements, Mike?
None from staff, no.
Upcoming in meetings, next meeting's August 26th. Sounds like a good one. We'll be there for that, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, all right. We'll see you guys then. We'll adjourn. Thank you.